2010. 5 minutes if you guys can keep the chatting down. And everybody go to Gapminder World now, regardless of where you're at with the Excel chart, so you can kind of follow what we're doing, because setting up your Gapminder World chart is a little bit tricky, okay? So I want to kind of walk you through that together, and then I can help you guys pick up the pace with your where you're not catching the Excel charts and stuff like that. All right, so Gapminder World is this really cool website where you can look up all kinds of things. And when you first go there, on the y-axis you see you've got life expectancy, and then over here, and on the x-axis you have what they call income per person, and that's just GDP per capita. Okay? So what you have is you can see these countries going up. The different colors represent the different continents. Okay, so you've got sub-Saharan Africa in blue, and then you've got Northern Africa in teal. Notice how Northern Africa is wealthier than sub-Saharan Africa. See that difference? Okay, and then you've got in yellow, some of the wealthiest countries are North America and South America. Red is Southeast Asia. And then Asia is the orange. Okay, so you can kind of roll over and it will pull up the different ones, right? Okay, now in order, you're going to look at them, I want you to see them all individually across the timeline. So first you need to pick your countries. So to pick your countries, go over to here, where your countries are, and you're going to select each individual country. So they're in alphabetical order, so like for me, I got to find China first. So I click on China, and then I'm going to click on, looks like France is going to be my next country. And then I click on Morocco, which I actually chose a northern African country. And Peru, and the United States. Okay, over all the way to the right, click on column width, and then you want them all to be 12, so they're all the same size. Okay, and if you start by left clicking on the letter that's up there, the whole column all the way down will change, and you want that to change all the way down because you're going to be copying and pasting this several times.
They all have to be.
What is the gross domestic product though? What is GDP?
It's like products produced in here in the United States.
Okay, so there's a gross domestic product for the United States. So things that are produced within the United States. Good. What else?
And the total value of that.
Okay, it's the total value of products made within the United States. Good. So one of the things that economists and people in general will use the gross domestic product for is to assess the standard of living in a country. A country in Africa which has somewhere around $8,000 a year per person, right? So they use this to kind of say, all right, which country has a better standard of living? Now, the question that you're going to be pursuing and trying to answer through the project is gross domestic product a good measure of the standard of living? Okay. So I'm going to pass out the assignment for you. Gross domestic product project. So take a look at that. And you're going to need your own computer. There's several. There's one over there. That's one. Okay. So sorry. Hands again. How many of you are familiar with making Excel charts? Okay. So look around the room. If you don't know how to use an Excel chart, you may need to ask some help from one of them or from myself. Okay, I will walk you through building the charts in a minute. Okay, that will be a large portion of your grade, is the actual Excel chart. Okay, so number 2, make another Excel chart for the country's life expectancy, child mortality, and one more category of your choosing over the same time period. Okay, so this website that we're going to use called gapminder.org has these charts, and it tracks information on various things such as gross domestic product, life expectancy, child mortality, It has murder rates, it has tax rates, it has any number of things. Now I'm going to have you look up life expectancy and child mortality as examples of standard of living. Okay? All right, so please don't start working on this yet. Okay? Listen to the directions first before you start working. Okay? I know that it's tempting to just go ahead and get started, but that's how you'll get confused. Okay? So, someone tell me why life expectancy would be a good way to guess what somebody's standard of living is. Why does that reflect how well you're living?
That's not
Because your life expectancy is all that I'm not living like healthy.
Okay, so the longer you live, maybe the healthier you are.
You can probably afford more, if you live longer, you can probably afford like medication and stuff like that.
Right, longer life is an indication of higher medication, better medical treatments. Right, people live longer when they have better medical abilities. Okay, so those are things that show us what a country's standard of living are. How about child mortality? First of all, how many people know what child mortality means? Yeah, mortality means death, right? So it's death rate. So the death rate of children from the age of 0 to 5. So what percentage of children that actually are born die between the age of 0 and 5? So that could be a stillborn baby would qualify as that. So a baby who's born dead would qualify as child mortality. So why is that percentage, why is that going to be an indicator of life expectancy? Jacob, why do you think that would indicate life expectancy?
Because
Or not life expectancy, sorry, standard of living.
it shows. Very sure.
Not sure.
No.
Should I pick on somebody else? Who thinks they know? Jalen? You just want me to pick on Jalen. The question is, how does that tell us what a country's standard of living is, right? How well people live, as to whether or not their children live past the age of 5. Okay, then they won't live long. Mackenzie?
If the standard of living is like high or good or whatever, then the children are more likely to be able to eat. Because like if your standard of living is really low, then that means you're probably not making a lot of money, which means you're probably not going to be able to afford a lot of food and stuff. So your child could starve or become sick or ill.
Yeah, excellent. So the healthier your children are, probably the better your standard of living is. Now, if you think about overall happiness, are you going to be more happy if your children survive or die?
Survive.
I think survive, right? I actually, unfortunately, have several friends that have had stillborn children or have lost a child in the middle of pregnancy, and it's an extremely hard thing to work through, right? So if that means that they carry them to term, but when they're born, they're dead.
What?
Yeah. So it's an extremely sad thing, right? And that is something that if you have a lot of that going on in your country, you're going to be considered to have a lower standard of living. So now you're going to need to choose a third category out of the ON-Gapminder that you'll research to help you understand standard of living for these countries. Okay? Number 3, you'll create line graphs that visually display your data. I'll show you how to do that using Excel. And then 4, this is your big presentation. This is how you're going to transmit what you learned to myself and to the class. You're going to create a PowerPoint presentation that does the following. A, define gross domestic product and standard of living. Be sure you address why each of your categories, life expectancy, child mortality, and the one of your choice, reveals standard of living. Right? So I just explained to you why life expectancy and child mortality reveals standard of living. You'll have to do the third one on your own. Right? B, displays your Excel charts and graphs in a visually pleasing and easily discernible manner. C, analysis. You will need to compare and contrast the 5 countries. Guys, do you know how to do this assignment already? Okay, well you probably should be listening. Draws conclusions about the advantages and disadvantages of using GDP to predict standard of living. D, it needs to be creative, and E, it needs to use proper English. Okay? So when you, and then you will all present these to the class. Your PowerPoint presentation should be about 5 minutes long. If it's a little shorter, not a big deal. If it's like 30 seconds over, not a big deal. But I'll cut you off at 5.5 minutes. So you'll want to practice it, because if you don't get all the information in under 5.5 minutes, you won't get credit for all the information you create. Okay. 5.5 minutes should be plenty of time. Last time I had people do PowerPoint. You'll be in the lab today, tomorrow, and Wednesday. And then the presentations will be a week from today, Tuesday and Wednesday. We'll take the first 3 days next week to do presentations. So most of you will probably finish in the lab on Wednesday. You'll be done, you'll be ready to go. Those of you that aren't will then have the next 5 days to work at home or in the computer lab before, at lunch, or after school. Okay? So let's create the Excel charts together now. So go ahead and open up Excel and take out your setting. Okay? You want to start in row 3 and then just type 1960.
You know, you can just hit it down arrow.
Skip 5 years, so 1960, 65, 70, etc. How far? Up to 2010 will be the last year that you. And on the sample, right? The only country that you have to do that's on my sample is the United States. Okay? The rest you can choose. You just have to make sure they're from the right continents. Okay?
I don't want to be Caleb.
In column A, you're typing, starting in 3, 19.
Just keep going.
Oh my
Okay, once you get those in row 2, B, C, D, etc., type in your desired countries. So we have U.S., well, you should type it out, United States. I have Peru, France, Morocco, and research. Now, in order to get all of the word in there, if you left click on the B, so left click on the B there, when you type out United States, it won't fit. And then click Format Cells. Okay, and then go to where is it? Why is it not there? The size. No, that's fine. Forget left click. Go up here. And then 12. Then you can adjust, but just make them all the same size. Yeah.
So what you're just talking about is making this like the same size, like so like this.
Yeah. So.
You can just double click on that line and it does it. You don't go to like format, just double click.
Oh, right, but we want all of them to be the same. So
The same.
Even A?
oh.
Or you can A be smaller?
A can be smaller. So like this is 12.1.